Now speaking, GU, Director, Investor Relations. Broadcom reported their second quarter fiscal year 2023 financial performance, with President and CEO Hock Tan and Chief Financial Officer Kirsten Spears providing details of the results. They reported non-GAAP financial results, which exclude certain items such as stock-based compensation, acquisition-related costs, amortization of intangible assets and impairment of long-lived assets. Revenue for the quarter was $5.7 billion, an increase of 8.3% from the prior year period, with GAAP earnings of $1.02 per share and non-GAAP earnings of $1.83 per share. Operating income was $1.3 billion, up 12.5%, and operating margin was 23.8%. Cash flows from operations were $1.2 billion, up 14.2%. Broadcom provided guidance for its third quarter, expecting revenue to be between $5.4 billion and $5.6 billion, with non-GAAP earnings of $1.76 to $1.84 per share. Now speaking, Hock Tan, President and Chief Executive Officer. In Broadcom's fiscal Q2 2023 consolidated net revenue was $8.7 billion, up 8% year-on-year. Semiconductor Solutions revenue increased 9% to $6.8 billion and infrastructure software grew 3% to $1.9 billion as core software growth offset softness in the Brocade business. Revenue from generative AI represented 15% of semiconductor revenue in Q2, up from 10% the prior fiscal year and is expected to exceed 25% by fiscal 24. Overall IT infrastructure demand moderated to mid-teens percentage growth year-on-year following 30% increases over the past 5 quarters. Wireless revenue declined 24% quarter-over-quarter and 9% year-on-year due to seasonal ramp of next-generation phone platform but is expected to remain flat year-on-year in Q3. Networking revenue was up 20% year-on-year to $2.6 billion due to deployments of Tomahawk and Jericho platforms for telcos and strong growth in AI infrastructure and hyperscalers from compute offload and networking. Broadcom's next-generation Ethernet switching portfolio consisting of Tomahawk 5 and Jericho 3 AI offers industry's highest performance fabric for large-scale AI clusters and supports 32,000 GPU clusters running at 800 gigabit per second bandwidth. Server storage connectivity revenue was up 20% year-on-year to $1.1 billion with transition to next-generation Mega RAID largely completed and enterprise demand moderating. In Q3, it is expected to be up low single digits year-on-year. Broadband revenue grew 10% year-on-year to $1.2 billion driven by deployment of 10G-PON and DOCSIS 3.1 with higher attach rates of Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and is expected to moderate to low single-digit % year-on-year in Q3. Industrial resales of $260 million increased 2% year-on-year on softness in China offset by strength in Europe and are forecasted to be flattish year-on-year in Q3. For Q3, Broadcom is guiding revenue of $8.85 billion. Up 5% year-on-year and expects semiconductor revenue growth of mid-single-digit year-on-year growth while infrastructure software segment revenue is expected to be up low single digits % year-on-year. Additionally, Broadcom announced a multi-year collaboration with a North American wireless OEM on cutting-edge wireless connectivity and 5G components and is making good progress with its various regulatory filings around the world for its pending acquisition of VMware. Now speaking, Kirsten Spears, Chief Financial Officer. Summary. Broadcom reported consolidated revenue of $8.7 billion for the quarter, a 8% year-over-year increase. Gross margins were 75.6%, up 30 basis points from expectations due to product mix. Operating expenses were down 4% year-over-year at $1.2 billion and R&D was down 4% to $958 million. Operating income was $5.4 billion, a 10% year-over-year increase, with operating margin at 62% of revenue, up 100 basis points. Adjusted EBITDA was $5.7 billion or 65% of revenue. The Semiconductor Solutions segment had revenue of $6.8 billion, 78% of total revenue, which was up 9% year-over-year. Gross margins were 71%, down 120 basis points due to product mix. Operating expenses were $833 million, down 5% year-over-year and R&D was down 4% to $739 million. Operating margins were 59%. The infrastructure software segment had revenue of $1.9 billion, 22% of total revenue, a 3% year-over-year increase. Gross margins were 92% and operating expenses were $361 million, down 3% year-over-year. Operating margins were 73%. Free cash flow in the quarter was $4.4 billion, representing 50% of revenue. Days sales outstanding were 32 days and inventory was down 1% from the prior quarter at $1.9 billion. Cash and gross debt totaled $11.6 billion and $39.3 billion, respectively. Broadcom paid $1.9 billion in dividends, repurchased and eliminated 5.6 million shares for taxes due on vesting employee equity, $2.8 billion total, and has $9 billion remaining under its share repurchase authorization. In Q3, they project revenues of $8.85 billion, adjusted EBITDA of 65% of projected revenue, and gross margins down 60 basis points sequentially due to product mix. Deutsche Bank analyst Ross Seymour inquired, "Can you provide an update on the demand for AI products, and how has the competitive intensity changed as a result of their increased usage?" Hock Tan replied, "Yes, there is still strong demand for our cutting-edge products and services. We do have extended lead times due to the complexity of our manufacturing process, so while we are working to meet urgent demand, it's taking time. As far as competition goes, that has been a constant in the industry. We continue to strive to be the best in the areas where we excel." Bank of America Merrill Lynch analyst Vivek Arya inquired, "Can you provide an update on the fiscal 23 targets of $3 billion in ASICs and $800 million in switches? And also describe your longer-term view of the share between general-purpose GPU solutions and ASICs in the AI processing opportunity?" Hock Tan replied, "For fiscal 23, we are still expecting revenue of $3.8 billion. We have given a broad trajectory for fiscal 24, but won't be providing specific numbers at this time. In the short term, there is an advantage in compute offload ASICs over merchant solutions. However, in the long term, merchant solutions may eventually prevail." JP Morgan Chase & Company analyst Harlan Sur inquired, "Can you provide an update on the progress of your next-generation AI and compute offload programs, and how customer demand is impacting program ramp timing? Are there any advanced packaging or substrate supply constraints that the Broadcom team is facing with respect to these solutions?" Hock Tan replied, "You are correct that the current and next generation of generative AI products use leading-edge technologies in wafers, silicon wafers, substrates, and packaging, including memory stacking. However, there is still adequate capacity to meet demand for these products. It takes time to deploy them though, so we are expecting a measured ramp-up in fiscal 23 and 24. JP Morgan Chase & Company analyst Harlan Sur inquired, "Can you provide an update on the design win funnel and the progress customers have made in bringing their designs to completion?" Hock Tan replied, "We are confident that our core opportunity lies in the networking of AI networks and have released products to facilitate this. We are working with customers to create a distributed, disaggregated architecture combining Ethernet fabric with AI capabilities. This has generated significant interest and is currently being designed." UBS analyst Timothy Arcuri inquired, "Can you talk about how AI CapEx affects traditional compute and infrastructure budgets?" Hock Tan replied, "I believe AI networks and traditional workloads and data centers can coexist. We are seeing an increasing budget allocated by the hyperscale toward AI networks, but this does not necessarily come at the expense of traditional workloads and data centers. It is too early to determine if there will be any kind of cannibalization between the two." BMO Capital Markets analyst Ambrish Srivastava inquired, "Can you provide an update on lead times and any changes due to moderating demand, decreased manufacturing cycle times, and the 6 months of cutting edge?" Hock Tan replied, "The standard lead time for our products is 50 weeks. We believe this timeline provides both customers and ourselves with the visibility needed to ensure the right amount of product is supplied at the right time. We are committed to this timeline." Piper Sandler analyst Harsh Kumar inquired, "Hock, could you clarify why revenue growth of $3.4 billion is almost entirely dependent on growth in Gen AI revenues from 15% to 25% by 2024? Hock Tan replied, "At this point, it is not obvious to us that there is any cannibalization. We are still seeing growth in our traditional business and augmented with AI products. As we move forward into the year, any potential cannibalization will become clearer." Exane BNP Paribas analyst Carl Ackerman inquired, "What role do you see the electro-optic portfolio playing in high-performance networking for inferencing and training AI applications?" Hock Tan replied, "Look, what you've identified is spot on. We're seeing very rapid growth in our networking components for AI clusters, far faster than our offload computing can grow. Our networking products are merchant standard and have been instrumental in the accelerated growth of generative AI clusters. This is where we're focusing our efforts to drive our growth forward." Morgan Stanley analyst Joseph Moore inquired, "What visibility do you have into the content of the wireless contract renewal, and can you provide further details about its duration?" Hock Tan replied, "We have extended our existing long-term agreement in the form of a collaborative and strategic arrangement. This multi-year agreement involves supplying specific 5G components and wireless connectivity products, an area where we are the market leader. For more specifics related to this agreement, please refer to the 8K filing. Goldman Sachs analyst Toshiya Hari inquired, how is your semiconductor business positioned to benefit from AI over the long term? What progress have you made to support sustained growth acceleration in this area, and how should we expect R&D investments to increase going forward? Hock Tan replied, Toshiya, AI is a growing area of our semiconductor business that could exceed 25% of our revenue in fiscal 24. We also have a strong wireless segment and other underpinnings for the rest of our semiconductor business, including broadband server storage and enterprise. As far as the impact on our long-term growth rate, we haven't updated our forecast yet, so we're unable to speculate at this time. Truist Securities analyst William Stein inquired, could you please comment on your foundry relationships, especially in regards to the possibility of new partners? How has pricing from foundry impacted your quarter-to-quarter changes? Hock Tan replied, thank you. We value loyalty to our suppliers and strive for long-term relationships based on service, support and commitment. However, we remain realistic about the geopolitical environment, so we are open to looking at alternative technologies to broaden our supply base. Price increase is not a deciding factor in our decisions, it's part of the overall partnership. Charter Equity Research analyst Edward Snyder inquired, can you provide some clarity on the mixed signal component of your past agreement? That does not appear to be included in the wireless deal. Additionally, can you comment on why we should expect increased demand for electro-optic products due to increasing interest in AI? Hock Tan replied, thank you. Our long-term collaboration agreement includes wireless connectivity and 5G components, but not the high-performance analog or mixed signal components we sell to our North American OEM customer. It's still strategic for us, just in a different way. Could you please repeat your second question, Ed? Charter Equity Research analyst Edward Snyder inquired, am I wrong in assuming that the Tomahawk 5 electro-optic product, due to its low power requirements, will increase demand from hyperscale customers? Hock Tan replied, you're correct in that we see our next generation Tomahawk 5 featuring co-packaged silicon photonics offering 51 terabit per second cut-through bandwidth, perfect for very demanding AI networks. Our Jericho 3 AI router has a differentiated technology that enables low latency and lossless Ethernet transmission, making it ideal for telcos and now AI networks also. We are leaning into this opportunity with our networking technology and next-generation products. New Street Research analyst Antoine Chkaiban inquired, can you provide more detail on your compute's offload business, such as the split between revenue from existing customers and potential diversification going forward? Hock Tan replied, thank you. Good question. We have one customer that we serve for our compute offload business, and it is not very diversified. We are very focused on this single customer. Evercore IC analyst Kurt Swartz inquired, what visibility do you have into Brocade stabilization, and how should we expect software gross margins to change as the mix of products normalizes? Hock Tan replied, our core software segment consists of two parts, our core software products sold directly to enterprises in the Brocade fiber channel SAN business. We have a strong backlog of $17 billion, averaging over 2.5 to 3 years, and each quarter a part of that renews. Our core software revenue drives mid-single-digit year-on-year growth rate, while the Brocade business is cyclical and experienced a strong upcycle last year, but not as strong this year. However, next year the cycle could turn around and we could see high single digits year-on-year growth in this segment. Mizuho Securities analyst Vijay Rakesh inquired, Hock, what is the content uplift for Broadcom on an AI server versus a general compute server? What percentage of servers are currently being outfitted for generative AI, and what do you anticipate the uptake ratio to be in fiscal years 2024 and 2025? Hock Tan replied, I'm sorry to say that our current reality is that traditional x86 servers and Ethernet networking are still the dominant players in the enterprise. Generative AI is still in its infancy, so most businesses haven't adopted it yet. We cannot give a definitive view of what the attach rate or stability of this technology will be in the near future as both infrastructures continue to coexist. GU replied, thank you for joining us today. In closing, I'd like to note that Broadcom will be attending the Bank of America Global Technology Conference on June 6 and anticipates reporting third quarter fiscal 23 earnings after close of market on August 31. We invite you to join our public webcast of the earnings conference call at 2 p.m. Pacific. Operator, please end the call.